All right, so yesterday we talked about having user input, and looks like I'm missing a few things here, just because I copied and pasted this. So Java, did I lose you guys? No. Okay. And then I've got import Java util. Oops. And then public class main. And then, all right, this is just from yesterday. I just had to retype it. Public static void main. Oops. All right. And then make sure I have all my closing statements. I need a closing for this closes the main, and this closes the class. All right. Lots to do. So yesterday, let's recap. We talked about, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Yesterday, we looked at reading in user input, so that's nothing new. We talked about prompting the user for a password. We then read in that line of user input and assigned it to the word password. We then, or at least I then, printed out the password just to make sure my input output was working correctly. I coded that right, so I printed the password out. And then we talked about doing the Boolean check. And the Boolean check was using an if statement or and an else statement. So we used if the password, whatever the user inputted in, was equal to. So it's a little bit different than doing the double equal sign, because we're talking about a string of information. We just do the equal dot equals, and that's going to compare the string to whatever the user puts in. So it's going to take that and say, hey, if the password was equal to, and I just picked a password that I wanted it to be equal to, 87 Bella, it's going to print out the output access granted. If that if statement is false, so this is where we're talking about that true or false with Boolean again. If it's false, it's going to jump down to this else statement and print out wrong password access denied. Okay. Is there somebody there that wasn't here yesterday that doesn't have this? Okay. Yes. Okay. So run this again to make sure it's working. So I asked, what's your password? I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it spits my password back out, and it tells me it's the wrong password and my access is denied. All right, something new. Something that's more practical. Let's talk about like when you are logging into your computer. You need to check your password and your username, correct? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go up here and make this an actual real world application. And let's go up here and also ask for our username. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a system that print line, and it's going to ask the user, what is your user name? So this asks user for user name. Just like a computer. Once it asks that, we need to have another string. So string, and I might call this user name. Make sure I spell that right. And it's going to assign that input to that variable called username. And this gets the username and assigns it. Called username. All right, so we have our username and our password. I can double check if I want. I could do a system printout of the username just to make sure it's reading it in, but I think we're good. And now we're gonna go to our check. And the nice thing about this is we can put our check right in with our username, or sorry, our password check. So can you guys tell me what operator we would use, or what type of operation operator we would use to check not only the password, but the username? So would we use the equal signs? Would we use the or signs? Would we use the and signs? Would we use the not equal sign? What would we do? Can you think of that? In our if statement? The and sign. Yep. So if the password equals 87 Bella, and we want it to equal, and we want our username to equal some username, then access is granted. So in here, in this if statement, I need to use the and, because both need to be true. So I need the double ampersand. And now I'm going to do the check on the username. So I need to say, hey, if the password equals 87 Bella and the username equals, and I need to have some username. So maybe it equals me. Then I'm going to say access is granted. If it doesn't, so if either one of those is false, so if the password's not right or the me isn't right, the username isn't right, it's automatically going to be false. So it's either got to be all true. It's got to be all true in order for it to be valid, in order for their access to be granted. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to run this. And hopefully I don't have any. Oops, of course I got an error. Oh, forgot a semicolon up here after username. Okay, so I'm going to run this again. It should ask me, what's my password? I'm going to use the right password just to check. 87 Bella. What is my username? I'm going to create some kind of weird name. I'm going to use the word Jacob. All right, so it spits out my username again just because I've asked it to, and then it tells me the wrong password. I could put I could change that and do wrong password or username. Access is denied. So if I run this again, if I have the right password, maybe I have 87 Bella. And my username, I'm going to do me. It should say my access is granted. If I run this again, and let's say I don't pay attention to case sensitivity, meaning I assume that like me could be a lowercase me or an uppercase me. Let's see if that works. So I have my password. I'm going to have the right password again. And I'm going to do an uppercase me with an uppercase M. This is case sensitive. So just like you would use your username or password in a computer or ATM machine or website, it's most of the time, most username and passwords are case sensitive, meaning if it's not exactly the way you typed it in when you set up your account, it's not going to be the same. So that's how we can use that ampersand or make those comparisons using strings. Questions? All right, so let's also talk about making the comparison with like an integer, if you will. So can I delete this, guys? Can I move on? You can take a screenshot of this. It is in the notes in Schoology as well, the code. So we're going to talk about comparing numbers and seeing if actual numbers compare with user input. So I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to keep my two closing curly brackets at the end. I'm going to still keep my scanner because I need to have user input. But now I'm going to ask I'm going to ask my user to enter a number. So enter a number. And I can run this to see if it's going to ask. But let's do a little bit more. So let's go ahead and read that number in. So I need to have I can have a variable. I can say, you could make this a double or an integer. I'm going to make it an int. Actually, let's make it a double. Double. I might say double user number. So that's the user number they input it in. Equals. Oops, I gotta spell number right. Equals. And then we use that user input for the scanner. At. And because this is a double, we need that next double, right? So that's a little bit different than next line. This is next double. And then let's just see if we can print it out. System that print line. And let's print that out. User number. Ugh, man, my typing's bad today. Print line. All right, so let's try this. I'm going to run it. Hopefully I don't have any errors because I didn't type something. Enter a number. I might do 89.78. And it prints it out. Okay, so that's nothing new. We're reading in a double. Make sure you understand that you need that next double if it's in fact a double number. And a double number is a number with a decimal point. Okay, so make sure you have that. And I'm just printing it out. But now let's do some comparisons. So to do that comparison, to do that, if it's true, we're going to do something. If not, we're going to do something else. Let's do if user number is greater than or equal to 75, we're going to do something. Maybe we system out we can system out good job or nice number. If it's not greater than or equal to 75, that's where you're going to use the else, opening and closing curly bracket. Make sure you have that. And we're going to print out system that out, that print line, bad number. Okay. And then make sure you have a closing curly bracket. So you should have 3 closing curly brackets at the very end. One to close, oops, sorry guys. One to close out the else. One to close out the main, and one to close out the class. So if I run this, enter a number, maybe it's 107.86. Is it greater than or equal to 75? Yes, it is, so it's a nice number. Did you guys get that? Yes, no? Sorry, you guys are breaking up. Okay. All right, so we compared number. What you guys are going to do is for your assignment for today and Monday, but I'm going to check in with you guys on Monday just to see where you're at. Get you ready for the rest of the week because I'm going to not be around until Thursday. And just to kind of check in with you, see how it's going here. You are going to do the assignment, and it's back in the classroom here. And it's going to be all the way down. It's going to be project even odd. Okay. In this assignment, you guys are going to create a program that will test to see if the user input is an even or odd number. And that should be number. Okay. So it's an even or odd number. So the first thing you're going to do is ask the user to input an integer. Okay. So ask the user to input an integer. So a whole number. You're going to test to see if the integer is even or odd. And then you're going to print the results. And the results are going to end up looking like this, something similar, where you're going to have enter an integer, it's going to show the integer, and then it's going to spit out the integer is even, or it could be odd depending on your test or depending on the user input. To do this is something new. So I'm going to show you guys this. You're going to use the operator that has the percent sign. So if the user input is the letter N, so let's say you assign it a variable. So just like we just did with good number, bad number. We called our variable user number, but in this example, it might be called the letter N. You are going to test if that statement is true using N percent sign 2 is equal or is equivalent to 0. So if that is true, and you guys, I didn't put it in Java code, but your code would look something like this. If that is true, so if your if statement would look something like this, you are going to, you might say system output, or sorry, system out dot print line, it's even. So you might say the integer blah 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 is even. Else, it's going to be false, and you're going to tell me like, hey, that integer, whatever the user put in, is odd. So this basically is a little mathy, and it says basically every even number is divisible by 2. So this little thing right here is kind of saying, hey, we're dividing it by 2 and seeing if the remainder is 0, right? So if the number was 10 divided by 2 equals 5, there's no odd decimal remainder, it's even. Does that make sense? Yeah? It's a little mathy there. So like, for example, if the user input was 9 and you divide it by 2, there would be a remainder, right? There would be 0.5 would be that remainder. So that would be false. It wouldn't equal 0. That remainder wouldn't be equivalent to 0. So it would be false, and it would tell me that the number is in fact odd. If we did that with 27, so if the user inputted 27, it would divide it by 2, which would give you 13.5. The remainder would have 0.5 as the remainder, so that would not be equivalent to 0, and that would be odd. Does that make sense? Yes? Oh. Sorry guys, you're breaking up. Yes? No? Okay. So this is going to be due on Monday, probably the end of class. But I'm going to ask you guys, how's it going on Monday? I assume you're going to probably want to do as much as you can today. But this is worth 10 points. So you're going to have at least 3 tests, like you're going to run it at least 3 times, or maybe even show 3, ask the user 3 times for a number. But it also needs to, you need to use your if statement, the else statement, and make sure you are using some output. All right, so that is it for today. All right, then I will talk to you guys on Monday, okay? All right, have a great weekend. Thanks. Bye. You are the